Hello my friends and welcome. It seems like Russia continued to lose their airplanes. Today it was a friendly fire from the Russian air defense near Sevastopol. If we check out the standard Google Maps, so this is the Sevastopol city, and here we have the Russian military airfield called Belbek. Let's zoom into the place. So this is the base of the Russian fighter jets. You can see many of them on a parking stand. Most of those are Sukhoi Su-27s, and one of them was shot down today by the Russian Panzer 1S or Panzer S1, something like that. The system that Russia uses to defend their airfields. And let's play the game with YouTube to check out whether this video is going to be restricted or not. I'm gonna show you the actual footage of the airplane falling down to the Black Sea. I share it for the educational purposes for us to check out the aerodynamics of the flying machine. So it was definitely flying inverted, upside down, and rotating at the same time, so clearly it was damaged in the skies. It went just in the sea, converted into submarine. What can we say for YouTube? That it was just a trick, because no one actually was hurt in this case. Pilot ejected right after the rocket hit the airplane and safely landed also into the water. There is the parachute coming down to the water. He was taken from the sea, and as a reporter he is fine and will fly again. In this case, sadly for Ukraine, it is not the fault of this particular pilot, by the way, but a mistake done by the Russian air defense. At first, there were reports that it is the Russian Sukhoi Su-35 modern fighter jet, but later on I obtained the information that it is Sukhoi Su-27. Some of the modifications of Sukhoi Su-35 have those kind of the elevators on the front like Sukhoi Su-30, but some modifications of Sukhoi Su-35 do not have those. So basically, it's the new generation of Sukhoi Su-27, I mean Sukhoi Su-35, which is the best Russian fighter jet so far. If I speak about the actual combat airplane in the Russian Air Force, not Sukhoi Su-57. That airplane is still very wet. Potentially, yes, it's the modern class. It is close to 5th generation of the fighter jets, but sadly today they lost Sukhoi 27, which is much older compared to Sukhoi Su-35. The Panzer S air defense system is located in the city of Sevastopol itself. We have the photo confirmation of it. It is not the only air defense system in the place. Again, it shows the miscommunication between the Russian Air Force Command and the Air Defense Command. They may even belong to a single command, but they have miscommunication, misunderstanding. It is not the first and not the last case, I'm sure, then Russia shuts down their own airplanes. Let's go to the Kharkiv City Hall attack once again. The Russian Investigation Committee officially accused Ukraine in planning this attack and executing it. They stated that there is the evidence of connection between the Kharkiv City attackers and the Ukrainian nationalists. The Russian investigators say that Ukraine transferred the funds through the cryptocurrency from some of the Ukrainian accounts to the accounts of those attackers, while probably Ukraine is also behind today's attack on the Russian fighter jet near Sevastopol. Probably our guys transferred some of the cryptocurrency to the Russian air defense crew which executed this mission. I mean, this is total nonsense for the Russian side to accuse Ukraine. I honestly do not have the words to describe it. They never said the name of the organization which claimed the main responsibility, ISIS. We do not hear this word from the Russian officials. All they say is Ukraine, 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 which means that probably they are behind this attack. I mean Russian FSB. We already witnessed that in the Russian history. Then FSB start to explode their own buildings, the houses of Russians themselves, to justify the attack on Chechnya. Alright, we have just received the latest military map update. Let's go to Novomikhailivka as the local source, the deep state military map says. The Russian forces continue their advancement, so it was yesterday and it is today. Well, they propelled a little, but not that much, I would say. They took just this place, it's basically nothing. So Novomikhailivka direction is very tough for the Russian army to break through. They already lost hundreds of the vehicles just in this place. Lots of their convoys were just ambushed with many of the infantry forces. Let's go to Avdiivka direction to Orlivka, over here where Russia reached this river that plays now the role of the defense line. Let's go to the timeline. It was yesterday and it is today. Definitely there is now a big question whether Russia would try to advance across it using two of those roads or not. On the south in Kharkiv we have the clarification of the front lines, so the front line was adjusted in favor of Ukraine. It was here before and here today. Also not a huge advancement, but it happened. As Shoigu says, this area was liberated by the Russian forces. Well, I don't think so. Now we have more and more news coming that Russia might strike Kharkiv. Actually, they already do it with the help of their missiles, artillery and the Shahid drones. The same information we have about Odessa. So some say that Russia is preparing the massive attack on Kharkiv. Well guys, to do it, Russia needs all of its army, which is now stated in Ukraine, around 500,000 soldiers for sure, to execute this mission. But they do not have that huge resource, first of all of the military men. At the same time, Ukraine also struggles with its own military resources. We see how the support from the Western countries shrinks. For this reason, I do not exclude that Russia would dare to attack Kharkiv. They would think that Ukraine is out of the resources to withstand against their new attack. But I think that they will fail, Russians would fail in that case. For Odessa it's basically impossible. They need the landing operation and the terrain there is very difficult for them to advance without landing from the Black Sea. And we know that most of their landing ships are already gone. So this is simply not possible scenario for Russia in any sort of the case. Here they might try to do it, but will fail completely. I would beat on that. The Russian propaganda again say that they would like to bomb the place to get rid of all of the people, causing them to flee Kharkiv. This speech happened again in Solovyov, a Russian show. This guy, the expert, who is by the way responsible for poisoning of Litvinenko in the UK, and so he is now the Russian expert, and says that Kharkiv needs to be cut from the electricity to such an extent that it becomes unviable. So before they say that the locals support the Russian peace, but now they want to get rid of everyone and put their own people in Kharkiv. This process fits exactly into determination of the term genocide, so that these 800,000 people with bales and head west and do the same with other cities. So their goal is not just Kharkiv, their goal is Ukraine. I would say even more, their goal is to restore the Soviet Union or the Russian Empire. Putin thinks that if he occupies Ukraine, the other republics would fail under his pressure. The ex-Soviet republics like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and maybe Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. It depends on appetite of Vladimir Putin. The similar report we have from Economist, they say that Russia is gearing up for a new big push along the front line. They say that Ukraine is not that sure about its forces as the year before. Ukraine should mobilize more army men and build defense lines. Ukraine has to use the shells very efficiently, but Russia may just fire at will because they have 5 times more artillery shells compared to Ukraine. The Ukrainian air defense is in lack of the missiles to intercept the targets which are launched by Russia. Ukraine didn't construct enough defense lines that should have been done the last year or the year before. Now at some point it's too late to build those, for example near to Avdiivka. I told you about it a long time ago, so it's the big minus for Ukraine that we all thought that Ukraine would just go on counter-offensive action, on offensive operations. All the resources were sent for attack operations, which were conducted during the last summer and basically failed. But now finally Ukrainian command realized that mistake and started to invest in building those defense lines. Meanwhile, President Zelensky gave the interview to the CBS. He said that Russia plans a new attack during the late May or beginning of June. Here he says that the situation on the east today is stabilized as much as it possible considering the fact of the deficit of the certain weapons ammunition. Well, honestly, I would say that the front lines now are not stabilized. Russia is still advancing forward. The front lines are moving and not in favor of Ukraine. Zelensky says that Russia attacks villages with artillery and later on they take those under control, occupying them. It's the usual tactics of the Russian army. They demolish everything on their way. Again, he added that there is no major counteroffensive from the Russian side, but he says about the possible future attack, so offensive, of the Russian army planned for the summer campaign. As many experts say, it could be in Kharkiv. If Ukraine loses, he said, war might come to both Europe and the United States of America. Missiles can reach any country even tomorrow. I would say even today. But of course now Putin hesitates to use those missiles against NATO countries. Sadly, but it is a fact that NATO countries do not support Ukraine on a full scale. They even reduced the support. What was in 2022 is unreachable right now. I mean, that level of support is totally gone. All of the promises from our robust allies that they will continue to support Ukraine no matter what, all of that appeared just to be words. Here I'm not saying the particular country or countries. Probably you know what I'm talking about. Sadly, but democratic institutions proved to be kind of clumsy and very slow, plus unreliable if something like this war happens in the middle of Europe. And you know those talks that Ukraine should stop targeting the Russian oil refineries, at the same time not giving the support, the military support, first of all, to our country. By the way, President Zelensky also said that the major part of the military support stays in the United States of America in terms of the salaries for those workers who produce the weaponry, in terms of taxes. Ukraine just obtains vehicles and the spare parts to fix and maintain those. And they tell us not to target the Russian refineries. What a strange war, I might say. At the same time, Russia has no boundaries to target any sort of the infrastructure in Ukraine, and they do it every day, but our hands are just tightened to response because someone afraid of the high oil prices. Business, nothing personal, right? Guys, I say it as I think. I want to be honest with you. We Ukrainian people are still very grateful for the United States of America and the other allies who help us during this hard time. But we see that gradually Ukraine loses the support, and it's not the matter of the territory, it's the matter of the human lives. So the less support we have, the more losses we also have on the front lines and behind those in our cities. I do not show you some of the images on this channel because they are too harsh, could be so shocking for my audience. But Ukrainian people are struggling under the Russian drones, missiles and shells every day. I mean, civilians. But someone still waits for something, at the same time blackmailing Ukraine not to use its force against some sort of the Russian facilities. It's not the war, it's some sort of the nonsense. Alright guys, sorry about this part, let's continue. Russia continued to build a new railroad which connects the Rostov-on-Don with many of the cities in Donbass, as you can see here, very close to Donetsk. I need to zoom in a little for you to see it. So close to Donetsk, Mariupol, Berdyansk, Melitopol. It will be a supply line for the Russian army to get to Crimea at first. They understood that the Kerch Bridge is just a temporary construction, so they built more reliable supply line, which is basically indestructible. If Ukraine damages the railways, those could be repaired very fast by the Russian side. It's not a big deal. I think that Russians will finish this construction the next year. Again, we have the message from the United States Department of State. They say that American soldiers will not be deployed into Ukraine. This statement is opposite to what President Macron said about the French forces, that those could be deployed to Ukraine. I think that there was a little panic among the NATO countries after Macron's speech about the French forces. And many of the leaders actually stated that their forces will never be deployed in Ukraine. At the same time, Putin looks at this picture and understood that, okay, that country will not go to defend Ukraine no matter what, so we can act more aggressively. That was the main reason why President Macron said that French forces could be deployed to Ukraine. Actually, he doesn't want to deploy his forces in Ukraine, but he wants Putin to think that he might do this step. But the other allies immediately reported that no, we're not playing this game. It's kind of the not good sign in general. Well, at least we have France and some of the other countries which stated that they might deploy the forces. We don't need them actually just give us weaponry, but we also need to make sure that Putin would think that allies might fight against Russia, so he would not escalate even more. But how can you escalate in this case? Already all of the weaponry is used in Ukraine, excluding nukes. What else can Russia do? Create more forces and attack Kharkiv, for example? Well, fuck around and find out. Well, in a way, Russia started the escalation using many more drones and missiles to target Ukrainian infrastructure. It is happening just right now. Lots of the strikes in Kiev area, in Cherkasy, Kryvyi Rih, and elsewhere. Recently, Russia targeted the big power plant in Kharkiv, totally demolishing it, so there's the problem with electricity in Kharkiv. Also, they targeted the Dnipro hydroelectric power plant, so Ukraine now has lots of the problems with electricity all around the country. Great news from our main European ally, Germany. They transferred a new military package for Ukraine. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for your kind support. Vielen Dank. The best thing that Ukraine obtains a new Patriot missiles. Great. The full list of this military package I published on my Telegram channel. By the way, my friends, if you want to be updated on situation in Ukraine, please subscribe for my Telegram. You may find it in the video description just below. I post there all day long if I have the access to internet to keep you updated with the latest news. We have a new video from Magyar, a famous commander of Ukrainian drone unit. Their unit filmed a destruction of the Russian base near to Kharkiv with the help of the J-Dam, the gliding bomb. It was a big kaboom, nothing left from this building. Clearly it wasn't the occasional civilian building, no, it was a Russian base. If you check out my Telegram, you'll see the evidence. On this platform, unfortunately, I cannot show the Russian soldiers who were inside. At the same time, in Kherson Oblast, Russia lost the radar for their air defense system Buk M3. The radar is the most expensive part, and it was targeted with the help of the FPV drone or something similar to that. This is the Avdiivka-Kaksakhim plant that was occupied by the Russian army, but still we have the video filmed on Ukrainian drone, and Ukraine continued to target the Russian positions even there, few kilometers away from the front line. So Russians are not safe in the occupied territories. Today, during the meeting with his soldiers, Putin said that there is no chance that Russia would attack the NATO countries, only in case they would attack first. As I recall, he said the same words towards Ukraine. He also added that if Ukrainian F-16s will be based somewhere in European countries, those would be legitimate targets for the Russian forces. Here we have the statistics for losses in the last 3 days from 25th to 27th of March. Russia lost 139 of the vehicles, Ukraine 58. No significant equipment, I would say, Ukraine lost during those 3 days, but Russia lost one of the Sukhoi 34 airplane. It hit the power line, so it is significantly damaged, but in the future will obviously fly, unfortunately. Again, many tanks and BMPs plus MTLBs for the Russian army, mostly kaputted by the drones. My friends, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. And also, if you want to support my channel and the job that I do on YouTube, you may check some of the links in the video description just below. My friends, thank you so much for your kind support. Guys, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.